This is bittersweet. It is the final portion of the international Netflix hit Money Heist, or La Casa de Papel. So let's go. The end of the greatest heist in history is now here, and what began as a robbery has turned into a war. If you're a fan of the Munchies, I'm really excited about the ones I have to tell you about. Stick around to the end to hear all about them. So when Volume 1 of Part 5 ended, devastating things had happened for the team. Plans had gone to crap, and not everyone had had the best of days. And then to top it all off, the professor was caught by Alicia, and now it seems that for the first time, he's operating outside his game plan. I'm going to do my best to avoid certain spoilers for Volume 1, just in case you've been waiting on both volumes to come out to just have this complete binge session. As goofy as some of the scenarios have become, the tension that has been part of this entire series continues through the finale. And to me, the last portion actually regained some of the anxious charm that the first two seasons had. There is still a lot of repetition though, which is a function of the storytelling as we watch events play out, and then later in the episodes we see portions repeated with new context. Sometimes these were clever and other times a little unnecessary because the info was already obvious and I didn't think that it needed just confirmation repeated. I love the simultaneous events that happen, creating a very immersive and exciting story. Now, if you did watch Volume 1, there was a new storyline that was introduced that involved Berlin's son, and it felt oddly placed, and there was even a really long episode that seemingly just had no point. That storyline does come back around in Volume 2, but I think it would have been much more effective overall to have all of the episodes in one release so that there's the continuity. It took me a few moments to remember all of the events that had taken place in Volume 1, so for that very brief moment I was playing catch-up as the scenes were unfolding. Most of the scenarios in this, while incredibly suspenseful and dramatic, they do have a large expectation of predictability. We've seen the magic trick so often where a situation feels dire and hopeless only to be turned around in some clever scheme. I still had a ton of fun with these moments, even if I was certain that they'd turn out okay in the end because I was experiencing the same rush that had drawn me into the show in the very first place. There's misdirection along with moves and counter moves that kept the story tension high. Something I've always been a fan of in this series is the choice of music for the score and the soundtrack. I'm sure some of it is maybe a little bit cheesy and obvious, but there were a handful of moments in this last volume where the song choice became very inspiring, and I thought it was a perfect fit, especially with how they complemented the action that was going on screen. Now, much of the time, the effects with explosions and gunfire, they look wonderful, but there were a bunch of times where our characters would be driving in cars that were so clearly shot on a green screen that they became distracting. The quality of these moments didn't live up to the overall awesomeness of the series. And I don't know if that was just because of time or location or what, but it just wasn't a good effect. Now, each of these last 5 episodes is in the 50-ish minute range, with the finale being about 75 minutes. So it is a time investment, but one that I gladly binged because the length was allowing for many different character moments, as well as some complex scheming. Now, since I'm already a huge fan of the series, it was really easy for me to like this. The elements that sucked me into the show from the outset are still present as we watch compelling character dynamics, then combined with suspenseful and anxious scenarios that feel like they could all fall apart at any given moment. While I loved what the professor is still able to achieve in this final volume, I was kind of hoping we'd see him go just fully unhinged once the events of the end of Volume 1 had taken place. But that then would also not really be in line with his calculating nature, so in the end, he's still true to the character that we've known, and we still get to see some massive intensity from him. So overall, I really enjoyed the conclusion to the Money Heist saga. I think it's a fitting way for the show to end, and we get to experience some incredibly stressful situations, whether they be circumstantial or between characters. While the concept of the show and even the scenarios are a little bit repetitive, I was able to overlook most of it because each was still building towards the exciting climax. The music is awesomely paired to create the right atmosphere for each situation, and the emotional pull of the story still had me gripped. And while some of the green screen effects were done poorly, I had a lot of fun watching this and found myself tensing up through most of it, even though I was pretty certain how things would resolve. I may not know the exact details, but the outcome felt assured. I'm glad we get a final conclusion to the story, and to me, it felt satisfying. There's sex, maybe some brief nudity, and then a ton of profanity and violence. I give Money Heist Part 5 Volume 2 4.5 out of 5 couches. Okay, so like I mentioned, I have a new munchie that I'm ready to tell you about. It's called Jeff's Famous Jerky. Now, for full disclosure, Jeff's Famous Jerky reached out to me and asked if I would be interested in reviewing their product. but I have not received any kind of compensation from them for this review, aside from the fact that they sent me a bunch of different flavors of their jerky to try. Also, there's a link in the description where you can buy the jerky along with a promo code that's going to give you 10% off of your order. Now, this is not an affiliate link. I don't get any kind of kickback or benefit if you decide to purchase. Okay, so I got 8 different samples, and I'm going to briefly tell you about each of the ones that I got to try. And I'm going to go from the order of my least favorite of these to my most favorite. Now, you might have a totally different taste palette than I do, and that's totally okay. So I'm going to do just my best to briefly give you the breakdown of how each tastes and why I do or don't like that particular one. Now, first up is a beef jerky, and it's called Orange Appeal. Now, it is a sweet beef jerky, and I am not a sweet person. I mean, well, I'm not. Maybe I'm sweet. I don't know. Probably not. I don't really like sweet food other than ice cream and candy and things that are supposed to be sweet. I like my meats and my regular foods very savory and then even more towards the spicy realm. So this one, it has a slight orange flavor. It's not overwhelming and it's not overly sweet, but it's kind of there. And for my taste palette, which could be a little bit just skewed because I eat so many spicy things, it tasted just a little bit bland. But if you're not a fan of the spicy, then this is probably something that's actually going to be fairly appealing to you because it isn't overly sweet. It's not overly orangey. It's just a nice mellow flavor. Next up is a similar one, and this is a brisket beef jerky, and it's orange mango. And they say it's sweet and mildly spicy. Now to me, again, it didn't taste spicy at all, but you can taste more of the mango in this one, and so it does give it this interesting flavor. It's not something that I am personally a huge fan of, but again, that's because I prefer the spicy, and I want it really spicy when I have it. But if you like something that maybe has just a very hint of spice to it, even if you like some of those salsas that are like the mango and habanero or something like that, well, I don't think this is going to be nearly that spicy. That little bit of fruit flavor just kind of offsets everything else, and it gives it an interesting type of flavor to it. Okay, so next up I have these last two that are in the sweet category. We have the sweet and smokin' barbecue, and then we have the sweet teriyaki. Now, I do like teriyaki, and actually I have just started to really enjoy teriyaki. For a long time, I didn't like it. This one to me is a little more sweet on the teriyaki side than I would prefer. I would like it a little bit more of that soy sauce type of, a little bit more of the salty flavor. It does have some of that to it, but for my taste, it's a little bit more sweet than I would prefer. But I think if you are a fan of just regular traditional teriyaki, or maybe even like huli sauce, this is going to it's going to really satisfy you. Now, the sweet and the smoky barbecue, I did taste some of the smoke within there, and I liked that. It had just a hint of a more of a barbecue type of feel to it. And so I really enjoyed this one. This is one that you could eat basically all the time, I think, because it's not too hot, it's not too sweet. It's just sits there right in the middle, almost like your traditional type of beef jerky. And big fan of this one. Okay, so now we're moving into the more spicier ones, and this is a cranberry jalapeno. Now, on the outset, I was like, I don't know about that. I mean, I enjoy cranberry juice, but I don't do cranberry sauce at all. It weirds me out, even if it's not in the can and that jelly weird thing. Anyway, that's beside the point. This definitely has a jalapeno flavor to it, which is really pleasing. I liked it. I thought it was really tasty. I didn't taste too much of the cranberry. It does add a slight sweetness to it, but it is not overpowering by any means. And the spice to this is not overly hot. There's not a lot of heat to it. So if you kind of dabble in the heat and you want something that's maybe a little more spicy, but still not like overly set your mouth on fire, this is a good one to go for. Following up with another jalapeno flavor is the jalapeno carne asada. Now this, interesting texture. It was a little softer, a little more kind of melted in my mouth. Still really tasty. I enjoyed this one a lot. The jalapeno flavor came through more because I think it's not competing or even being complemented by the cranberry of the last one. And so this one, if you're looking for something just a little bit more spicy, this one is good. I mean, it's still mildly spicy, especially for my palate, but very, very tasty. A really great one to try out. Okay, I only have 2 more. So this one is the black pepper and sea salt. Now, black pepper is obviously always gonna lean towards the spice flavor. I mean, it's gonna heat it up, especially if you get chunks of that black pepper in your mouth, because then they're like, whoo, That is good. The sea salt in this is nice because I like salty things as well. Not overly salty where it just makes my face pucker in and, disappear, but this has a really great flavor. And depending on the piece that you get, I don't know if you can see this. I don't know if it's going to focus in or not, but there is some, you can see the actual black pepper chunks within there. And so they stick to the meat. And so that means that when you bite into it, you get that. And I like this one. Now it says it's mildly sweet, or excuse me, mildly spicy. I think it actually leans a little bit more towards the true spiciness of that. And that's because of that black pepper. Now, last up in the ones that they sent me, the habanero heat wave. This is absolutely my favorite out of all of them that I got. I love habanero stuff. I love spicy. And this one will set your mouth on fire, but it still has a wonderful flavor to it. So good. Oh my goodness. You can see, and maybe you can see, I don't know. I apologize if this is just all blurry in there, but you can see the pepper flakes within there, the seeds of the pepper, which provide the heat. So good. This one, totally. I would just down this, and actually, I have it open, and I will probably, this is a finish in one sitting type of thing because I can't help myself. It's also one of those things that once you start eating, and you get that heat in your mouth, you want to continue on, and you want to keep feeding that, because if you stop, that's when you just head bursts into flames. So this one, totally outstanding. Now they sent me a catalog also, and they have some, flavor packs. They also have low sodium and they have low sugar packs as well. So if you're, if any of those are a concern, maybe that's something for you. They're not really available in stores. I think maybe some very specialty food stores you might be able to find them on, but they are available online. I don't know if they only ship to the US or if they ship internationally, but hey, you know what? I really enjoyed them. And if you want, hey, that promo code is down in the description below. But a huge thanks to Jeff's Famous Jerky for providing all of these samples for me to review. I hope you enjoy them. So are you a fan of Money Heist? I'm sure I've asked this before, but who is your favorite character? If you can even choose. I know it's a hard one. My favorite is Tokyo, but I love qualities about so many different characters that they all vie for the top spot. So let me know yours in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.